of you to our pop-up PD session today. And I'll start by letting you know that we are recording today's session. So please know that you'll be able to find this recording later. My name is Summer Burton, and I'm happy to welcome you to the third webinar in this year's pop-up PD series for 2022 and 2023. I am speaking to you today from the traditional territory of the Adirondack, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Lenape peoples, who have a long-standing relationship with the land, water, and region of southwestern Ontario. To begin this virtual session, I would like to acknowledge the Indigenous peoples of all of the lands we each call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their culture. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all of the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations peoples that call this land home. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. And for those of you who have attended Pop-Up PD before, we're thrilled to see you again. Pop-Up PD is a series of free webinars developed by a committee of representatives from regional literacy networks and the provincial support organizations for literacy. We take our cues from you about what to focus on in each session to ensure that the topics we present are relevant and important to the work you do. We started presenting English language sessions in the 2015-2016 fiscal year and are grateful to our partners at Coalition Ontarienne de Formation des Adultes, or COFA, for their ongoing support providing French transcription for these webinars. You can find those transcriptions along with slide decks and recordings of each webinar by visiting the Pop-Up PD resources page on the eChannel website. We'll post a link for you in chat, and we hope you enjoyed today's session and invite you to suggest topics for future sessions by emailing us using the address that's shown on your screen. Before we begin, I'd also like to acknowledge the hardworking team helping us deliver today's webinar, which includes American Sign Language interpreters, Becky Stuckless and Carolyn Lazonsky, to whom we are very grateful for providing ASL translation services today. Heather, who is the Executive Director of Quill and will be keeping an eye on the chat for us today. We encourage you to reach out to her with questions along the way, and I'll be checking in with Heather occasionally throughout today's webinar to see if there are any specific comments or questions we need to address. We're also grateful for the support of Stacy from Contact North, who's providing technical support for everyone attending today. If you find yourself having any technical issues during today's webinar, please reach out to Stacy directly in chat, or you can call 1-888-850-4628 for technical support in both English and French. Now, for some context about today's presentation. This spring, the Pop-Up PD for Literacy Educators surveyed the field, asking for feedback on topics for our 2022-2023 webinar series. With a rather impressive 72% of respondents interested in learning more about assessment tools, it became pretty clear that that would definitely be the focus of one of our sessions. To prepare for today's session, we asked for input from programs across the province, looking for assessment tools that people found particularly valuable, and also asking what they wished they had access to in terms of assessment. Thank you to those of you who responded. The 27 LBS representatives who shared their thoughts really helped inform today's session, and also helped us rethink part of the focus of this webinar. That's because in addition to more broadly used and celebrated assessments like Escargot, Camera, or Skills Marker, or EPAT, many programs reported having developed assessments in-house to specifically meet the needs of their learners or their program. As you probably already know, there are a wide variety of tools being used across the province. So we've decided to include not only widely available tools that are available for assessment, but best practices for modifying or developing new assessments and for working with learners throughout the assessment process. To help us share all of this amazing information with you today, we're thrilled to welcome a panel of representatives from college, school board, and community-based LBS programs, as well as regional networks and support organizations. From the college sector, we'll welcome Heather from Sault College and Rick from Fanshawe College. Joining us from the school board sector are Melissa from the Renfrew County District School Board and Jill from the London District Catholic School Board. From the community-based sector, we're pleased to have Jessica from the Haldimand Norfolk Literacy Council and Sue from the Literacy Group of Waterloo Region joining us. Then we'll welcome both Sarah and Jamie from the Adult Basic Education Association, which is the regional literacy network in Hamilton, and Monica from Alpha Plus, the provincial organization focused on helping adult literacy programs incorporate digital technology into their practices. We owe a big debt of gratitude to all of these wonderful panelists for agreeing to share their time and experiences with us today. To start us out, I am very happy to introduce Heather Ferguson, who is the coordinator and English Student Success Professor of the Academic Upgrading Program at Sault College. With 25 plus years of experience in higher education in both the US and Canada, Heather has shared her knowledge and expertise in student recruitment, intake, and retention at more than 20 regional and national conferences and webinars. She recognizes that effective intake and assessment procedures and tools are necessary for referral, registration, and instruction to meet the needs of learners. At Sault College, the Academic Upgrading Program uses in-house intake assessments and placement tests in math and English, as well as the College Sector Committee's online Skills Marker assessment. Today, Heather will be speaking about Skills Marker, which was mentioned several times in the responses to our provincial survey. Heather, thank you so much for bringing your expertise on this subject to our webinar today, and I'll pass the floor to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Summer. I'm very pleased to be here. And yes, as mentioned, we do use a variety of assessments, but we've used Skills Marker, which is an assessment of essential skills produced by the College Sector Committee. It was originally called the ESEE, so Essential Skills for Employment and Education. So some of you may be familiar with the EC term, others might be familiar with Skills Marker, which is the current term that we use for the assessments. Basically, Skills Marker has served a variety of purposes. For us at Sault College, we originally started using it as a way to measure learner gains. We're part of the OALCF, and as a requirement of that, we were supposed to track student gains over the course of their time with us. So we didn't really have a tool that could be pre and post at the time. So we incorporated this assessment because it does have the capability of doing both pre and post assessment, and therefore we can look at gains. And then eventually we incorporated it during COVID as our main and only form of placement testing, so that we had an opportunity to figure out where students' skills were with math, with reading, English, digital literacy, and those areas. So we were fortunate that we were using it before COVID, so it kind of became a nice seamless transition for us when we had to make the move to online-only education. But Skills Marker is also used in a variety of other capacities. It can be adopted by colleges, school boards, employers, etc. But it's also a tool that people can use individually. They could take the assessments to see where their skills are for certain occupations they're interested in, or if there's certain educational programs they would like to get into. And then, as you'll see a little bit later in the presentation, there are learning plans and learning activities that individuals could adopt and follow through if they wanted to do their own individual upgrading outside of an actual program. So there's a variety of different uses for skills marker, and it can be incorporated for just about anything that a student would need to see where their skills are, where they need to be for what their goals are. The nice thing about Skills Marker is that it is fully online, and it's also in English and in French. So I think that makes it applicable to pretty much any program in Ontario. So just a couple of quick facts. As I already mentioned, the original name was EC, Essential Skills for Employment and Education, and it is fully online, and it is administered by the College Sector Committee. But it was updated in 2020 to correspond with the new Federal Skills for Success framework, which replaced the Essential Skills framework. So as you can see by these statistics, it is well used throughout Canada. Over 450,000 of assessments have been taken by over 90,000 different people. And just in the past month alone, 4,800 assessments have been taken by individuals either currently enrolled in literacy programs or interested in getting enrolled into literacy programs, or they are just upgrading for their own personal benefit. So the skills marker assessment we find it quite useful because it covers a lot of different areas that students might need to upgrade in. So reading and numeracy and writing are obviously common areas for us to address with our learners, because these are essential skills that they need, especially if they're planning on going into education at the college level. So those were primarily the ones that we used when the skills marker was initially incorporated throughout the Ontario College upgrading programs. And then they added problem solving, digital skills, and listening. And originally I thought, I'm not sure if those are something that we're going to use, but then when COVID lockdown hit and we needed to assess student digital skills, it was nice to have a tool that gave us an idea of whether or not a student would be successful in the online environment. The other benefit is that the test administrator can assign one or more of the above assessments to each test taker. So as I mentioned, we started with just reading, numeracy, and writing. If we have a client coming in who just needs numeracy, they just need a math course to get into a college program, then we would have them do just the numeracy and the problem solving assessments to see where their skills are in those areas. They're not required to do all of the assessments because sometimes that would just send a student the other direction. They're like, I have to do all this testing. No, I'm gone. But we can pick and choose the assessments that we feel are sufficient for what their goals are. We use the HRSDC 5-level scale and the IELTS 500-point scale for scoring. And that aligns with pretty much everything across the not only Ontario, but across Canada as well. So those are common literacy levels that you would see in literacy programs throughout Ontario. But the alignment is quite nice because it makes it easy to incorporate at just about any program. It does accurately assess the essential skills proficiency. It is Ontario-centric. However, there are agencies around Canada that do use the program. So it is Canadian, specifically suited for Ontario. It produces customized learning plans, which I will show a little bit later. We already know it's available in French and English. And it also includes embedded ASL videos that will explain keywords. So most of the college LBS and academic upgrading programs do use Skills Marker to place students. It's either to just determine initial eligibility to get in, and in some cases, we can use it to actually place students in specific courses. And when we look at some of the reports, you'll see the detail that can be broken down so that you can effectively use it for course placement if you wish to. For us, we've been using it for many years in a variety of ways, but definitely with the switch to remote learning during the lockdown, it was used by almost every college program. It's nice that it's available 24/7. That way, if we have a student who works full-time, does shift work or whatnot, they can take this assessment whenever they're available to take it. So the link is sent to them and then they're able to take it at their convenience. And it can also be completed with a smartphone. So if the potential client doesn't have access to a computer, they can still at least do the assessment through a smartphone. And it is not timed. That was one of the things that was very important to us because we don't do time testing in our program. So we wanted to make sure any type of assessment that we delivered to students was also untimed as well. However, if you do want time testing, that is certainly an option. The other benefit that we found is that it can be completed in more than one sitting. So if a client has to take reading, numeracy, writing, problem solving, digital skills, if they have to take a number of different assessments, they don't have to worry about thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to be sitting at a computer for hours on end taking these assessments. They can take them one at a time that's convenient for them. Now, if your program requires them to be completed in a certain amount of time, that's certainly up to you. But generally speaking, the students or the clients have the opportunity to put their testing in a series that works for them. The questions are psychometrically validated. When this program was in the beginning stages, we were part of the pilot to help with making sure the questions in each of the assessments were valid and something that didn't have any bias to it, that type of thing. There's also a random test bank. So not every person taking the test is going to have every question. So you don't have to worry about the potential of one test taker sharing answers and questions with another test taker because each test is random. The best feature perhaps is the adaptive feature for the reading assessment. Skills Marker does require that a client has basic reading skills because they do have to be able to read through the questions in the online setting. So there's a series of questions that it'll start with a moderate question, depending on how they answer. They'll have either an easier question or a harder question, and that will go through the entire assessment until we're able to pinpoint the students' levels. So there's also a 6-question locator at the beginning of each assessment that will allow us to see which test students should take. So if their answers to that locator are fairly basic, they would take test A. If they're able to answer more difficult questions, then they would take test B. So this just kind of gives you a visual of how the locator works. So if the client answers one or fewer questions, then it is suggested that the Skills Marker assessment is not for them and that they be referred to another agency or perhaps a different program within your agency where the client can work on basic reading skills. If they answer, 2 or 3 or 4 questions correctly, then they would be put into the type A assessment for level 1 questions. If they answer 5 or 6 questions correctly at the locator, then they take the type B assessment, which is what we call the full assessment. And then that allows us to place them at either level 1, 2, or 3. And they'll also get the IELTS 500-point score for each of the assessments as well. So the results are immediately and automatically shared. So as soon as the client has completed an assessment, the test taker gets the results, and then the test administrator also will see the results. In my case, as an administrator, I get an email as soon as a client has completed one of the assessments. So I can either wait until the client has completed all the assessments to take a look, or I can look at them as the scores come in as well. And the reports are very easy to use. They provide the score, and it also gives an idea of the different tasks that a student is most likely to be able to complete. There's also the feature of a learning plan that has access to free learning activities that are customized to the test taker's results. And in the next few screens, I'll be able to show you what some of those reports look like. So here's an example. Hopefully it's not too small on your screens, but here's an example of a numeracy report. So as you can see, it does break down into specific types of math, and you can see whether or not the client has mastered that content or has not yet mastered that content. So from a placement perspective, it gives you an idea of exactly what a client needs to work on. So if you can't see this, just to give you an example, the report gives you the level. So in this case, the client's level is level 2, and the score is 243 out of 500. So that's where it aligns with the IELTS. And then for the math module, it says whole numbers, fractions, decimals, geometry, percent, business math, introductory algebra, number sense, and so on. So it gives you a specific breakdown as to how the student performed on that specific assessment. Okay, and this is a screen that it's the second page of the math assessment, and you'll notice that the correlations to the OALCF are included as well. So for example, this student was not successful with the geometry and will need to upgrade in that specific area. And that area falls under OALCF C 3.2. So it'll give you a direct connection to OALCF levels. And then this is an example of the breakdown for a reading assessment. Again, it has the OALCF correlations. In this case, the client did fairly well and mastered complexity levels 1 and 2. And then in this case, the client would need to work on complexity levels 3 for reading comprehension. And then here's an example of the breakdown for writing. So although there is no writing sample with this assessment, it does give you a basic idea of the student's skills. So it does look at word order and sentence structure, vocabulary, grammar, and punctuation. In this case, the student's grammar skills were fairly good. However, the student will need to work on word order, sentence structure, vocabulary, and punctuation development. And here's an example of the digital skills breakdown. And this is one of the things that we used when it came to figuring out if students were able to succeed in the online environment when we went to remote learning during the lockdown. So although it's kind of generic grouping, it at least gives us an idea. This student would be able to do online searching. They understand what a keyboard scanner GPS is. They're pretty okay with online communication such as email. However, this student might need to brush up on word processing, spreadsheets, and maybe some of the other skills that a student would need to work in an online environment. I see the question of cost, and that will come up at the end of the presentation. So this is an example of a learning activities plan. So here at Sioux College, we don't use learning activities plans for our students because we have actual courses that students register for. However, we do use some of the different links that are available in these activities. So for example, this is a digital skills learning activities plan. So if a client wanted to brush up on their digital skills on their own, they could simply go to this learning activities plan and then click on the various links that will take them either to online modules or videos that would benefit them in developing the specific skills that were suggested for them. So basically, if you're a college LBS provider, the skills marker assessments are free because it's part of the support provided by the College Sector Committee. Other college users outside of college LBS can purchase vouchers either through PayPal or credit card. And then non-college LBS providers and external organizations also need to purchase vouchers. Generally speaking, it's about $35 per test taker, which is one voucher, and that provides both the pre and post test for each of the 6 assessments. And then there is volume pricing available in increments of 50. So I'm just a user. I'm not on the business side of the skills marker and College Sector Committee. So if you do have specific questions about the product, please do send an email to info@cscau.com, and one of their staff members will get together and work something out with you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Heather, so much for sharing so much information about Skills Marker and how it works. Just before we welcome our next college LBS representative, I want to check in with Heather from Quill to see if there are any questions for Heather from Sioux College in the chat about what she's shared with us today that we didn't already address, because I know that I heard there was a question about cost, and I know she's already addressed that. Or if any of our deaf participants would like to ask questions through the ASL interpreters.
So there was one question, somebody who didn't see what the minimum OALCF level was that these tools measure at. So they want to know, is that level 1?
Yes. Yeah, we measure levels 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions. I just wanted to ask one myself then. Basically, how long does it take to complete an assessment, given that, assuming that the person doing it is maybe at a level 2?
Okay. We've had clients take anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 minutes to take an assessment. Then there are some who will take 45 or 50 minutes. Those are usually the math questions where students are busy writing out their answers and whatnot. So the math assessment is probably the longest one if the student has fairly strong math skills, because obviously the more questions you answer and the more difficult questions you answer, the more you're going to get a fine-tuned picture of exactly where your skill sets are. But I've seen students complete the assessment in 5 minutes for reading. They're obviously very quick readers. And surprisingly, the assessments were quite accurate in their placement. So it depends on the client, and it also depends on the atmosphere the client is taking the assessment in. If they have a lot of distractions around them, it might take them longer. And I actually have seen on some of the reports that come through that it took one client 3,200 and some minutes to complete an assessment, which obviously they weren't sitting there that entire time. So from a time perspective, I'm not sure how much time they actually took, but if they leave it up and running, it will stay open as long as it's there.
Okay, understood. There is another question. Is there any training requirements for people administering the assessment? And before you answer that, I'm just going to pop in a continuation of the last one was, so reading skills have to be pretty good to do all of the assessments. Reading's involved in every one of them.
Yes, there also is a feature though where the questions can be read aloud. So they have that option. So as long as the clients, if they're a low level one, chances are they're going to struggle with the full assessment. But if they're middle to upper level one, they should be able to get through the majority of the assessments without a problem. And I think there was another part of the question that I didn't answer.
Do they need any training to
Oh, the
administer?
training, yes. So any training comes when you log in as an administrator or as a practitioner, you'll have all of the information on how to use the reports, how to use the site, how to set up your clients and whatnot. So all that training is included. It's not like in-person training. And to be honest with you, it's actually very easy to use. I learned by just kind of playing around with it before, because I was part of the pilot. And I actually found it quite easy to figure out how to use it. And then once all of the user guides came into play, I'm like, wow, this is great. So there are user guides for all of the practitioners.
Okay,
Wonderful.
thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather.
You're welcome.
I'm going to pass the floor to Rick Townend, who is an academic advisor and a consultant with Fanshawe College, working with the School of Access Studies. He is a coach and a motivator, a real go-getter, which is one of the reasons we don't have him for very long today, because he's got to go move on to the very next thing he's got lined up for the afternoon. He is going to be talking with us a little bit about face-to-face diagnostic tests, a math booster diagnostic test that his team designed for pre-apprentices, and a little bit about sort of informal evaluation. Welcome, Rick. Rick, you just need to.
Thank you so much, Summer. Thank you. And thank you, Heather. Great job. Just one comment with regards to skills marker. We find when our students do it, one of the places we run into a little bit of trouble with them is in the comprehension section. You can't go backwards. When it's asking you a question with regards to a corresponding paragraph, there's no way for the candidate to go back and check. So it's a real kind of marker of this comprehension, but we find our participants don't score well there, kind of based on the practice that they would normally kind of go back and glance, right? So we use the same skills marker. That it is a very effective tool. Just like Heather said, it has different types of pieces that I think are that fit well together for an overall scan of a learner. But we also use face-to-face as well when people are more comfortable with that mode of learning. And then we'll also design our own for a particular program. So we won't be shy of developing an assessment tool that will help give us a better gauge of the candidate's skills. So we kind of believe in our program, we kind of believe all of this as the objective to testing. First off, it has to measure what the adult curriculum framework is trying to assess. It has to accurately gauge the academic or problem-solving skill being tested. That means if the test we might think it's testing something, but unless we actually step back and pull it apart and look at specific questions, it may not be. We may need to modify it each time we use it to different types of lower language learners or higher language learners. So those might be some of the challenges with it. It has to meet the ministry's mandate on making judgments on opening a learning plan. That's a given. But it should never be the sole piece of information in making a judgment on somebody. So, we have some people very skilled in numeracy skills. They may have been out of high school for quite some time. They're in a job where they just have not used any of their literacy skills, whether that be through oral presentation or writing. And so trying to get them to use a paper response or even electronic response when their digital literacy skills are really low, we find that kind of skews where their intelligence really lies with regards to it. So sometimes an interview is really good because You know, they present very well and they can solve problems really well by describing to you exactly what it is. So they might be the kind of person that can give directions really well and follow them really well because they've had to, but ask them to write it down and they would have, you know, they have nowhere to start. We also believe that there can't be just one way a candidate can be tested. That's why we have some different options to this. We tend to find that when we get somebody that scores really low on one test, we'll actually ask them to take the other one. So if they do the digital one, we'll ask them to take the face-to-face. If they do really poor on the face-to-face, we'll ask them to do the digital one. You know, if we get a real skew in their results, then we know that there's a learning disability there. There's something there. But if they're consistent, then we think, okay, well, first off, our tests are good because they both came out in the same place, right? And it's actually measuring, it's actually giving a fair analysis of where that person lies. So I'll get you to advance. Here, I'm gonna show, I think, do I have the ability to show my screen, Summer? Do I have that?
You should. I'll stop my
Yeah,
share.
so Heather's done a really good job of giving us a bit of a background with regards to skills marker. I just wanted to show you, this is a pre-assessment that we did for self-assessment that we used for boot camp. And if you notice the skills we picked these, so these students are going towards post-secondary, and we picked post-secondary success. We went to the student success framework that our college has, and we picked these skills as being the top skills that somebody would need in a first-year program moving forward in a health sciences program. And so that's kind of where we got these from. And we do a little lesson introduction around this with regards to advocacy before we kind of give them this. And we ask them to kind of reflect on it. So we do it by story mode. So we would do this as a class. Like they would get the story piece to it and then reflect on it and then make a self-awareness answer to that. And lots of times the conversation that comes out in the group is very valuable. So we'll have some people go, oh yeah, that does fit me. Well, I put down no originally, but I think that would be more, you know, I would simulate towards that skill. So that's kind of a unique way of doing it. They have to hand it in. It is a self-assessment. We're not going to change anything that they give to us, but we kind of do it in story format. And that's kind of like, it's actually fun. We get to know people, you know, quite a bit through that. This is one that we have with, that we've designed for our numeracy program with LiUNA 1059. And we have designed this right against the apprenticeship standards that the two apprenticeships that they train for. So construction craft and cement finisher. And if I had the ability to scroll through, here we are. Okay, good. The test is broken down into the 4 components in the training guideline for the apprenticeship standards that say these are the skills apprentices need to have. So the first one is imperial measure. Learning how to work with imperial measure, learning how to work with imperial measure in its context of operations, meaning addition and subtraction. And then the next one is perimeter and area. There's an actual area question on the bottom. There's a perimeter one here, number 2. And then the third one is manipulation of fractions, all the operations of manipulation of fractions, and then the conversion of fractions or ratios, working with ratios or conversions. And so that's exactly what this diagnostic is. I'm going to tell you, we rarely get somebody that does well on this. And we thought, well, maybe this is too hard. So we actually gave the same test to some industry people, some people who are out in the field and work with this every day. And they said, you know, their feedback to us was, it's too easy. This is too easy. So we thought, okay, well, maybe it is right. But generally speaking, for a pre-apprentice coming into LiUNA, they find this challenging. About 70% of the people that write this actually get below the apprenticeship standard. All right. And then the last one we have, if I can find it here. Sorry. it's on this page. I'm sorry, maybe I apologize. I might have already X'd it out, so I apologize. But it's our own self-made in face-to-face diagnostic, in-person diagnostic is totally built on the Ontario Curriculum Adult Learning Framework. And it's backed out with the questions that would reference anywhere from level 1 to level 2 in mathematics and level 3 in English. And we have a special program at our school that allows to try and retain students that might do poor in mathematics. So if they score well in English skills, but they're level 1 in math, we have a math booster program, and we've designed a whole curriculum for that. And again, the curriculum is built around, starts with level 1, moving towards level 2 standards in that, and it's a 6-week program, 2 days a week. And we require, almost 100% attendance for somebody to be in that program. And it's been very successful with, in retaining people that we might have to send out for, level 1 support. And again, that's been self-driven in our house. But again, all of it goes around the ministry's standard. And if we have another provider that we're working with, or another client that we're working with, and that could be in employment, it could be going towards post-secondary, we'll always start with what are the skills, what are the necessary skills, what's a successful applicant look like if they're going towards this program in this school. So it takes us a while to kind of design these. We'll pay somebody in our organization to take a really good look at this. And then we also take the time to, 6 months down the road, take a really close look at it and say, is it measuring what we think it's measuring? So yeah, that's just a quick overview of some, call it homemade assessment pieces. Yeah, any questions? I think somebody put in the chat, can you explain a little bit more of your face-to-face? Is that what it was? I didn't get
Yes,
that.
that's what.
Yeah. So yeah, our face-to-face has both an English and a mathematics diagnostic test to it. And we give candidates 3 hours. They can use that 3 hours any way they'd like. If they'd like to use 2.5 of it just on the math portion, that's fine. We normally give them the math portion first, and we tell them, we tell them when 1.5 hours is up. If they go beyond that time, we kind of make a little bit of a recording in terms of that, because that's a little bit of an indicator, but they can use a little bit more time to do that. But we tell them they're kind of robbing from the English time. And then we'll give them a bit of a break, and we'll move into the English portion of that assessment. We do that largely because more of the clients that come to us have stronger English skills and in their literacy skills and numeracy skills. And so it's kind of bent that way. So
there's another question.
yeah.
Do you run into any friction at your LSP table because the college is delivering OALCF level 1 programming?
Yeah, so we run it's called a retention program. We still use level 1 referrals in our community. St. Patrick's, London Literacy, there still is a definite need for that. We're probably in correspondence with them every week. So the Math Booster program, we look at as a retention program. We don't actually call it level 1, but we look at it as a retention program. And part of that is we've actually had some other organizations refer clients into it. So we don't even register them until they've gone through our orientation. And if they're not, if they've come out of Math Booster, they're not even registered with us yet. So you have to clear orientation before you get registered with us. Yeah.
Okay, there's a comment from Heather Ferguson. I'll just read it out loud so it's
Sure.
on the transcript. The in-house tools from Fanshawe address specific needs, which are essential for accurate placement. Multiple assessment methods are best to ensure your program effectively place in and direct learners to the right services. Although Skills Marker was our only option during remote learning, we did create a more specific digital skills assessment for remote learning through MS Forms to
Excellent.
ensure remote learners had the tools needed to learn online. We currently use our in-house assessments in math and English as primary placement, but for clients who cannot make it to campus to write the assessments, we still have Skills Marker for our remote online
Excellent.
learners.
And you know what, Heather, that's pretty much what we do as well too. We use it to fit the modality of the purpose and the ease of the client. Yep, excellent.
And I think that's a universal sort of approach, right? There
Yeah.
is no one right assessment. There are a host of assessments that are the right one in different situations with different clients.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rick, for
Thank
sharing
you.
your
I'm
approach to
sorry I have to
assessment.
leave right away. Thank you
No
very much.
problem. Thank you. All right, next we're pleased to welcome Melissa Frisk, who has been the Literacy and Basic Skills Manager for the Continuing Education Department at Renfrew County District School Board for about the past 12 years. Before becoming the manager, she was an instructor with the program. She currently holds the position of chair of the LBS Steering Committee for Continuing Education School Board Administrators, also known as KESBA, and is on the board of directors for the Rideau Ottawa Valley Learning Network, which is also known as ROVLIN and is the regional literacy network for that area. Melissa is joining us today to speak about the use of KESBA's online skills inventory, which was mentioned so many times in the survey that we did, Escargot, another hot hit, and the reverse binder. We're so pleased you're here, Melissa.
Thank you very much. And I will actually get somebody to go to the next slide, please, since that was introduced. Thank you very much for allowing me to present about a few tools. As people said prior, it's important that we use a variety of assessment tools, but I'm going to highlight a few that were developed by KESBA and one that we utilized that was the result of a workshop. First, I think it's important to remember that LBS practitioners are the subject matter experts on the skills and tasks required for learner success in their selected goal path. But the question that we often address, and certainly myself as a coordinator, is how do we train new LBS instructors in understanding competencies, skills requirements, tasks, and the selection of the right assessment tools for learners? Because that's quite overwhelming for new instructors coming in. And then how do we provide proof to our funder in respect to initial and ongoing assessments in a language that they will understand? So I'm going to highlight a few with that lens. I'll get you to switch to the next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about the OSIT, which is the online assessment tool that was developed by KESBA. It was developed to provide an online option for assessing client skills and aptitude of their skills. Our program started to use this tool when we moved to remote delivery during the pandemic. And it was a way to address the inability to do a paper-based assessment, which was the only assessment tool we were using. And then, of course, we switched to remote delivery and really had no other option, and we're flailing. And so this really was a blessing. And we've been working on this tool for a year and a half, and suddenly it was in need across the province. So it was sent out to all the school boards if they had the option of using it. The nice thing about it is you can share the link to students to complete the assessment. So again, it's open, as can be utilized 24/7. And then the assessor can go into an administrative site and determine the competency levels. They can add comments, and they print the results to share with their appropriate staff. So then it can be sent off to the practitioner, so they can utilize it when meeting with the client. Switch to the next slide, please. So the skills assessments are in competency A, B, and C. It generally takes about 20 to 40 minutes to complete, and it's meant to give an idea of the skills, but it's not a comprehensive initial assessment. What's great about it, it only tests the skills that the learner has said that they are confident in. So I gave an example of a screenshot of question 7. It's not all of question 7 where it says, How would you rate your math skills? So it shows addition, subtraction, multiplication. It would also include division, decimals, percents. But if they click not confident, then they won't have to do a question in relation to that. They're already saying they're not confident in that skill. If they say that they are confident, then as they scroll down, they will have a question that they need to answer to show proof of that competency. So it's important that they, if they're not feeling confident, sometimes in a paper-based assessment, there's a number of questions that they do and they can't answer. So they start to feel a little bit upset when they're doing the initial assessment. The pros of this program is it's very user-friendly. Even for those who have very little digital skills, they're able to navigate it through quite easily. It's concise. And as I said, it has a built-in confidence booster for learners. The cons of it is the results are in a 3-page format. So it's been a harder sell, at least to my instructors, who are used to a traditional initial assessment, which is multiple pages of testing. And so when they first were to see this 3-page result, we got some of the instructors going, where is the rest of it? Because they are used to that. I would also say that the writing sample for learners, because they're typing it in, tends to be a little shorter than the paper-based assessments that we utilize. So it's harder to evaluate the competency in B2. But again, we see that within the first few weeks of them in our program, and we're able to reassess really where their skills are at. I'll go to the next slide, please. So the ESCAR-Go is again a tool that you can find online at KESPA. I've put the link there, so you can copy the link if you would like. It allows practitioners to identify the embedded knowledge, skills, and attitude for successful task completion. This information form is the basis for instruction and learning activity selection. So basically, if you were to look at it, you will see it's a checklist of skills and knowledge in all 6 competencies. And it's divided by levels 1 to 3. And it also includes a readiness. So you will see it says pre-1. We'll show you on the next slide in a few minutes. But it will help the instructors make decisions on what to teach for specific tasks, what tasks might be appropriate based on the learner's skills development. And the link that I've highlighted will show a practitioner the step-by-step that is involved in selecting a task and then identifying the skills, knowledge, and attitudes that are required for successful completion of that task. So if you switch to the next slide. So for us, the primary purpose is to create that link between skills and tasks. And as I said, especially in the framework for new instructors, how does that work? So how do we use it in our school board? Once the initial intake skills assessment is complete, the assessor will attach the checklists for reading, writing, and numeracy with the skills that are checked off that were proven in the assessment. We have to remember the initial assessment, whether it's through the OSIT or whether it is through a traditional paper-based assessment, we're not assessing all of the skills that would be on that checklist, but it is giving you a rather consolidated view of what skills that they have and what skills they would need to work on in each of those. Then it allows the instructor to identify what skills need to be taught in order to complete the OALCF tasks for their selected goal path. The pros of it is it's an excellent tool for new LBS instructors to build capacity for working with a task-based approach. It's easy to use, and it's valuable to explain to the funders or other internal organization members for school boards who speak in a different language. So if school board program, we speak in the language of skills. So when we start using the word tasks, it's hard for them to comprehend what exactly that means and all the embedded skills in that. So this is a really great tool to be able to show them and utilize language that they're familiar with. Some of the cons is that some new instructors still find it very overwhelming when trying to link skills to tasks and then to the proper selection of milestones. Some think that every skill needs to be demonstrated. But with ongoing training and practice, it becomes easier. And we certainly give that support with our experienced instructors to talk about the selection of tools and how that's used. I'll get you to go to the next slide. So I'm giving an example of what the initial skills assessment checklist looks for writing. So task B2, and you will see how if I was to do an initial assessment, how I can then start writing the performance descriptors and what skills that they would have. Then I can also circle some things that I may not have seen, but were assessed in the initial assessment. So attaching all three of those to the initial assessment gives that instructor something to work with when they first start working with the learner. Get you to switch to the next slide, please. I'm going to talk about a reverse binder just quickly. This was developed as a result of a workshop that a few of our instructors went to a few years ago, and they absolutely loved it. So I thought I would highlight it because it also is an ongoing assessment tool that we use. And I will, after we talk about it a little bit, I'll switch to the to a sample so you can see what it looks like. Each culminating task has a page, and we do utilize culminating tasks in our school board program, but it is some people don't, so I understand that a little bit. Then it highlights the task groups and the levels of culminating tasks are identified. Then associate milestones are listed, and then we use assessment activities from Literacy Northwest and Quill, and they're listed as well. So how do we use it in the Renfrew County District School Board? An instructor will work backwards by selecting a milestone to place in the learner plan. That skill development will occur with the learner. And then they'll start choosing some assessment activities from the Literacy Northwest and the Quill, which you can get online. And then it is, they use it to coordinate selective practice. When the instructor feels that they are able to master that, then the milestones are delivered during the training. And often 4 or 5 are selected based on that goal path and that culminating. Not every one that is listed on that list has to be complete, but it allows for the selection, and especially when we know what the skills gaps might be, they can select that. Then of course, when somebody leaves our program, the culminating task is then selected and they're leaving our program and they do complete the culminating task. So I'll get you to switch to my last slide, which highlights what it would look like. So as you can see, this was completed for the credit program, and it's the secondary school credit goal path. We have highlighted what the culminating task is, then the task groups, the associated milestones related to it, and then of course some assessment tools that are activities, task-based activities from both Literacy Northwest and Quill Network. And it's certainly been an extremely valuable tool when we have new instructors, especially because it really is quite overwhelming to know what they're selecting, and they want to make sure that it's purposeful and that they're doing, before the learner goes on to their next steps, that they've included all the assessment tools they should be utilizing. And basically, if you have any questions about these, I know there's some questions that have been popping up that are going to be addressed, but certainly reach out to me and I will be able to explain it. When I talk about the reverse binder, we didn't create it. We just went to the workshop and we enjoyed it so much that a few of my instructors said we need to utilize this tool for sure.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Melissa. There's a lot of value in the tools that you shared today. Now, I know we're going to be welcoming another school board representative, but Heather, I think there are maybe some questions for Melissa.
Okay, the first question is there a cost to OSIT and to Escargot? I responded there was no cost to Escargot, and other people have provided the link to the resources. So I guess it's OSIT
Yes.
that we're looking
right
for.
Right now, the online skills assessment tool, the Ontario Skills Inventory tool, is only being able to be utilized by school board programs. It's actually, our committee is revamping it. We had to put it on a new system, and we've asked that question to our committee. Is it going to be available to community-based, college-based? And that's something we're addressing internally right now. For those who are school board programs, the program is free to utilize. You just need to be set up with an assessor password so that you can get into the assessment site as well.
Okay, thank you. And who presented the reverse binder workshop?
We were trying to find that information. It was quite a few years ago, and I believe it was a community-based group, and I know that I believe Leslie Hamilton is on the call. She may have been part of that presentation, and I'm not sure at this point.
Well, if she is, we'll welcome her to make a comment in the chat. Perfect. Is that it for questions, Heather?
Yes, that's it.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Now I'd like to welcome Jill Slemon, who has her Doctorate of Education in Applied Developmental Psychology and is also a teacher. She is currently the LBS manager and an academic advisor with the London District Catholic School Board. Jill has worked in the literacy field for 23 years, and outside of work, she likes to read, play guitar, and complete woodworking projects around the house. Jill, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to share information with us about learning styles, along with developing reading, writing, and math tasks. I'll go ahead and pass the floor to you.
Thanks very much, Summer. And I've got my eye on the time. I see that it's 3 o'clock. So what I'm going to do, if you don't mind, is some of the tests, I won't be reading them out. I'm going to skip those, but I do want people to know up front that I do have duplicate links. And if you want to have the copies of the tests, I'll be glad to send them to you. So the advantages of the diagnostic tests, as Rick said before, always having a debriefing with a learner after the diagnostic tests will give you wonderful information, and that's what we do. But the diagnostic tasks that I'm going to show you help to establish a baseline of performance and identify client needs, tie learning outcomes to specific tasks, strategies, and goals, and introduces relevant person-centered learning, and it allows for improvement of tasks based on observation and feedback. Next slide. So in the next slide, I've got the learning styles task. I'm going to show it to you. We changed that over into Microsoft Forms in 2020. I used to do it face-to-face when I was with the learners. So there are 4 sections. I have a set of yes/no questions, and I just tell learners whatever is right for you, say yes. If no, say no. And I code the items by seeing is a 1, by hearing is a 2, by doing is 3, and by computer is 4. And if they answer yes to 2 of those areas or sections, those styles may be preferenced. And I always check with the learners during the debrief. Next slide. So you probably can't see this, but it has a series of questions. The first question is, it is best for me to get work done in a quiet place. And we go through those questions, and depending on how they score, we identify them as having specific learning preferences. Next slide. So what I do is I get that information and I transfer it onto the learner plan. We've just had our monitoring visit, and one of the things that ETCs are looking for is that the learning plans are personalized. So after a debrief and I do the online assessment, I take notes about what they've told me, how best they learn, and I add that to the learning plan. So if their primary learning preference is by doing, I may write on the learning plan organizing notes, work on computer, rehearsal, to-do lists, review written log, just the things that they would say are their preferences. Next slide. So now the reading and writing, this is a task that I did, and before the pandemic, I had 8 assessments. Takes about 20 minutes for a learner to do. Multiple choice questions in reading, and in writing, I ask them for 1 well-written paragraph. So 5 to 7 sentences is what I ask. I have a battery of 18 reading and writing tests. About every year, 40 to 50 of our students in the English as Second Language program are referred to the LBS program that we have. So as others have said, you don't really want people using the same test and getting the same information. So I have 18 different tests that I cycle throughout the year, so people are getting different assessment information. Now with the reading task, what I do is this is where all the time comes in when you're developing things. You're reading a lot, and if I see something I like, I will get written permission to use any copyrighted material. TED Talks is very good. I've talked with them, and just so long as you provide a citation to the transcript, you source it, and you provide a hyperlink, you can use it for educational purposes. And so the types of questions, I have multiple choice, A, B, C, or D, and I follow a general pattern. The questions I ask are asking them to locate basic facts, proper sequencing of information, understanding special vocabulary, so define the word, and then I would take something from the story. I also look at tone of story and main idea of the story. And I've asterisked those because those are often level 3 questions, so I keep my eye on them when I'm scoring. It's a self-scoring test in Microsoft Quiz. So that information comes into your inbox, and you can look at the responses. Now the writing, as I said, is 5 to 7 sentences. I want a well-written paragraph. Next slide. So in the next slide, you'll see that not all writing is we're able to use. So what I do is, if I see a transcript, say from TED Talks, I'll cut and paste it. And I use, right this year, I'm using Readability Checker. And I look at the Flesch-Kincaid grade level. So I cut and paste it on the dialog box. It will ask you if you're a robot, and you'll click and say no. And then it will actually develop these statistics for you. So the next reading task that I'm going to show you is working at a Flesch-Kincaid grade level of 6.9, so about grade 7 level. Next slide. So in the next slide, you're going to see the reading and writing task, and I'm just going to read it. It's 4 tips to help you achieve your goals. And the text says, what is the one goal you wish you could accomplish? Chances are you have no problem naming it. So what holds you back from achieving it? So if you go down a couple of paragraphs, you'll see number 1, define your fears instead of your goals. Number 2, banish the word fine. 3, approach your obstacles with curiosity. And 4, embrace your new wins. So this is the type of reading passage that I'm looking for. I'm looking for something that a writer has already structured that's very clear, because these clients are going to be doing this at home, and they won't have you to help them and prompt them. So when you're looking for a reading sample, you want something with a great deal of structure to it already added. Next slide. The next part is the writing task. And so I have them read the question and write a well-constructed paragraph, 5 to 7 sentences to the following question, and use complete sentences. So in this paragraph, discuss the strategies you use to set your own goals. So the answer here is, first, I ask myself what behind of the goal, then how I can achieve that. Second, how long it takes to obtain it, what I need to pull off. Lastly, I will write all details about my plan to each goal. With this information, I always send it to our teachers. We have a computer, a database where a teacher would log in, and I'll write all the case notes about the learner with all of the information that I have from the initial writing task. And the teachers particularly like to see the writing samples so they know what's happening. Next slide. Now, in order to show you things, I always like to show you the failures as well as the successes. And one of the things that I tried to do is during the pandemic, is I tried to do an arithmetic mathematics task. It was a failure. I can send you the link if you are interested in it, but with most of the learners that I serve, they're people who have stopped at grade 9. So they found the arithmetic math task overwhelming. Melissa was mentioning the OSIT task, and it's an excellent task and one that I would recommend. So I tried it, and in the answers, in the sections for answers, I got OMG, IDK, so oh my God, I don't know. So I just stopped doing that. So we asked people in the debrief what math they had at their school, what math they felt comfortable doing, what types of arithmetic they do in a day. So that's the way that we obtain the information that helps us to put that, level them for the training plan. But I also tell our teachers to give them the initial assessment from KESBA, the one that Melissa referenced. It's a numeracy assessment. It's excellent. And it's what we used during the pandemic shutdown. We gave it to the learner and they worked on that. So that's all I have.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jill,
You're
for
welcome.
everything that you shared with us about diagnostic assessments. Don't leave us quite yet. I do want to once again check in with Heather to see if there are any questions in the chat before we welcome our next guest.
No questions at this point.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. All right, now please help me welcome Jessica Moore. Jessica is new to the literacy world, having started with the Haldimand Norfolk Literacy Centers in mid-2021. While she started as an instructor, she's now the coordinator for the Haldimand Norfolk London Learning Centers. I trip over that a bit. Simcoe site. Her previous experience was in the finance and mental health sectors, bringing varied background to her role here. She's going to be sharing some great information about how this community-based LBS program is modifying their initial screening tool to include elements of ABEA's Learning Challenges Assessment, how to ask some potentially sensitive or volatile questions during intake assessments, and their use of the Common Assessment Tool from Literacy Northwest. Welcome.
Hello, thank you, Summer. So I'll try to go through this fast as we're running out of time. So I'll talk first a little bit about our initial screening process. It is done over the phone, very quick, basic information to start with to determine whether they're potentially a right fit for the organization and our program. And then we would schedule the full assessment. So for the screening, we basically gather the demographic data, referral source, and what they're looking, why they want to enter our program and what they're hoping to get out of it. So to back up a little, I completed the Learning Challenges Assessment training with Sarah from ABEA, and I really liked their background and pre-screening questions. So I drew a little bit on that, as well as previous experience. I worked in a crisis stabilization bed program where we had to ask a lot of those potentially sensitive questions, and questions that we weren't thinking of or asking in our LBS program. So that's where I kind of drew the inspiration from, and we're discussing changing our screening a little bit to ask some of those important questions that we weren't asking from the start. So I start with telling people why we're asking those questions. I don't want to just go in and say, hey, do you have a history of violence or drug use, with no explanation? So we talk to them about, it's important for the safety of our staff and all of our learners, including the person I'm doing this screening with. And we want to look at our learners holistically So we don't want to just look at what do they need from our program, but can we refer them to other supports in the community that they might need while they're in our program or before they enter our program? So those kinds of things. And it doesn't, we're not asking these questions to disqualify people from our program. We just want to know what's going on in their lives so that we can best help them and support them. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. So an example, we had somebody who was referred to our program and they disclosed, the referrer disclosed at the beginning that this person has a history of violence. So I called the referrer, which happened to be the case manager. We discussed what that looked like, what that meant, get more information. And we determined that this person had, a history of violence towards women in particular. And again, being an all female staff, majority of our learners being female, that's obviously a safety concern for us. But also in talking to that case manager and getting that information, they said, they're probably not going to be good in a classroom setting. So it turns out that wasn't the right fit at this time, but I was able to refer them to some online supports and different help that person could get, even though they weren't the right fit for our program at the time. So I had a few more examples, but I can kind of skip that part for time's sake. Go into what we're here for in what we use for for assessment. We use the Common Assessment tool from Literacy Northwest, and it is designed to be used in person. During the pandemic, there was a pilot to make some of these forms digital. I don't know if that's been fully rolled out yet. We were part of the pilot, so we do have some fillable forms in PDF that we can deliver that virtually now as well. There's no cost for this tool. I know that's a popular question. It can be found on their website, which is northernliteracynetworks.ca. And it's all available for download there. And there's lots of other videos, other tools and resources on that website, which are good to use as well. But this Common Assessment tool is what we are using. So with any tool, there's pros and cons. No tool's perfect. I would say the pros for this tool are that it's really easy to use in all levels. It includes all the competencies as well as all the goal paths. So if somebody comes in looking for to be on an employment goal path, I can go to that section of the Common Assessment. Excuse me, sorry, I had to cough. And search for assessment tools from that area. And it can be used as an initial assessment, ongoing assessment, and as well when they're looking to exit our program to show progress along the goal path. The cons that I've found, so sometimes they have used third-party websites or links to activities that can become outdated or don't work anymore. They do have a way to report that, and they do try to update that as they can. And as well, that it wasn't developed to be digital, and I'm not sure if the fully digital version or fillable forms are available as of yet. Again, we were part of the pilot for that. So if we go to the next slide, I'm just going to talk quickly about some of the activities you might see. The first one here is for somebody who's on an employment goal path. This is a level 1 activity. So very common sign that they might encounter in the workplace. And then quick, short questions about the information on that sign, and the answers can be found really easily, basically word for word from that. If we go to the next one. So this is for a secondary school path, level 1 task. Again, a short little story with questions that can be found right in the text. And this might be something that you would see on a short quiz in a school setting. So it's really relevant. If you go to the next one, this is a level 2 employment goal path task. So again, something you're probably going to run into very often. You're going to have to read an email at some point. What I like about this one is it's obviously longer, but you also have to make those inferences. It's not as clear cut as the no smoking sign. So it does measure at a higher level. And then next one. And this is a level 2 for the secondary school goal path. So again, a little bit of longer story, more detailed. What I like about this one is that it's got the multiple choice, which somebody will encounter in a school setting. So it tells me, are they able to understand how to do a multiple choice quiz? And can they determine what information is relevant and not relevant and find that information? And then at the very bottom, it's hard to see on here, but there is a short answer question as well. So that can measure, their writing skills and be another test taking format that they might encounter. So I talked really fast, tried to get you a lot of information in there. So if you have questions, let me know.
Quick question. Are you using the common assessment for OALCF as an intake assessment?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
And we do pull other tasks in as well. So we have like a digital checklist that some people will fill out. They do a writing sample for us. So we do base it on what they're trying to, what their plans are here. But this is our main source of an intake assessment.
Okay, thank you. And how do people get access to this tool?
So it's on the website, and I can pop that link
Pop it
in the chat. Yep.
Perfect. Thanks.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jessica, for everything that you've shared. We really appreciate it. And also for popping that in the chat, because everybody looks like they need to go find it now. All right. It is my pleasure to welcome Sue Damon next. She began volunteering for the literacy group as a tutor and a small group facilitator in 2005, and was then hired as the TLG program coordinator for Kitchener in 2009. Her responsibilities include new student intake and assessment, designing student learning plans, matching students with tutors, and monitoring matches, which gives her an excellent insight on today's topic. She's going to be discussing 2 different assessment tools that were referenced in response to that provincial survey. One is CAMRA and the other is SARA, also known as the Study Aid and Reading Assessment. Thanks so much for being with us today, Sue.
Okay, and I know the time is limited, and I think I can get through in 7 minutes. What I'll do is I will just kind of point you in the direction of what these slides are talking about, and those who wish to explore them in more depth will have copies of the slides, can go back to them. So basically, Summer suggested that there was some interest in understanding what the CAMRA was about. It's a standardized diagnostic tool by PTP. It's for the employment goal path. That's important to know that that's what it's designed for. It tests in 4 domains: reading, writing, document use, numeracy, 4 competencies. It aligns with essential skills, which are now called skills for success. There are clear guidelines provided for administering and scoring the assessments. There are placement tests and then stage tests, so you can use it both as an intake assessment, placement, and then also to document progress. For those who are very low, you can do a stage 1A, I believe it's called, to assess people who are very early level 1 to get some idea of what their skills are as well. Next slide. So we've been using it as a referral tool. Our network, Project READ, is funded by OW to provide literacy assessments for OW clients. They use the camera to make appropriate referrals to the various agencies in our area. So we get the report on the camera from Project READ, and it is basically, it gives us a snapshot, a very general idea of skill levels, but it doesn't give us enough to design a learning plan. It's task-based, so we know that tasks need skills, and so we still have to do the skills assessment after we get the kind of a snapshot of general ability in different areas. It allows us to pick out whether there may be a learning disability or a more broad intellectual disability. For example, if they score 3 in document use and 1 in reading, we know there's probably some kind of a learning disability, because they wouldn't, otherwise they would score 1 across the board. If there's intellectual disability, that would be typical. Or sometimes they do well in math and not in reading. So that it gives us some initial diagnostic information. Yeah, it can be used to measure learner progress, but we haven't used it that way. My training was finished in March 2020, and we all know what happened after that. So since it's a paper-based assessment, it does have limitations in terms of using it in an online digital environment. I'm told by Lisa, who's also here, that there is a new version coming out almost as we speak, which addresses ESL learners. It brings in some of the ESL characteristics or requirements as well. Next slide. So this is just a sample report. We can flip through this quickly. If you're interested in seeing what Project READ sends us, this is very general idea. They give us a competency task group and level, and they give us very, kind of a very broad overview of what that person was able to accomplish. This is standardized language, as you can see. A few little things like their writing sample, but you can go back to this and take a look at this as you wish. Okay, so it's not a robust skill assessment. It's geared to employment, and it's paper-based. We've already covered that. Next. So the SARA is something that our agency has been piloting for a number of years now already. It was initially designed to assess students in grades 3 to 12. So it has a wide range of applicability in terms of the skill levels. That would be about level 1 to level 3, basically. So it does have a broad spectrum of applicability for assessment. It's a US-based tool, but we haven't found that to be a disadvantage in any way. We've been piloting it, which means we get to use it for free. They are looking for other piloters. So if this is something that's of interest to you, you can get this assessment for free. It's a researched and referenced tool, standardized tool, so you get some good results. Okay, yeah, it's very simple to administer. You send the student or the learner a link, username, password, they're into the test. We haven't had any of our learners that really struggled with the format of taking the test. So it's easy to administer, easy to get to the students, and not hard for them to take. Next. These are the 6 areas of reading. It focuses on reading alone, so it doesn't touch document use or anything else. This is a deep drill into reading. These are the 6 areas that they cover: word recognition and decoding, vocabulary, sentence processing, reading comprehension, reading efficiency, and morphology. You can get an idea from the website as to what each of these areas covers, but there's 6 areas of coverage for the assessment. Next. How we use it. Next. We use it to determine whether our program is appropriate. For example, the student scored strong across the board in a level 3. We know that they're not meant for our agency because we work mainly with level 1. So we can use it to screen out immediately people that aren't appropriate for us. 2. Or next. We use it for program development. This is an overall picture of all the results of all of our students, all the tests they have taken. You can see on the far left that word recognition and decoding is a very significant weakness in our students. They're level ones. Many of them don't have good phonics and good word recognition skills. So we beefed up our phonics program, and after seeing this, we thought we've got to do more. So we started a phonics group, for example. So this is one way that you can use it to see where in your program there might be weaknesses across in a comprehensive, broad-based population. Where are the weaknesses in general to guide program design? Next, we identify individual students' reading strengths and weaknesses. Next. So this is just a snapshot of some of the tests. You can get color coded. Red is weak, green is yellow is low average, green high average, blue is strong. So you get kind of a picture of where your students are at in terms of the various categories or subtests in reading. Next, please. This is another, this is a test result from a student. You can see where they were scoring in each of these 6 competencies for one student. You can see once again that they were weak in the decoding. So that means we better tackle that. This is interestingly, we had one student very recently who retook a test after 1 year, and the only area in which she improved was the word recognition and decoding. And I thought, well, that's a bummer, until I realized that I had read in her initial report that none of the other areas would begin to improve until that was above a certain level. She had to have the decoding and word recognition to be able to improve in comprehension. So it's interesting, it will be interesting to see whether now that that score has shot up above the red into the yellow, whether she'll begin to improve in the other areas as well. Next. This is just another, rather than a bar graph, you get a line graph, same results, just a different format. Next. Another format for receiving your test results. You can see their actual score, the percentage request, correct, how long they took, etc. Next, please. This is just one area of the test, word recognition and decoding. So you can break down into each of these 6 subtests. Next. And you get a report on what that means. What does it mean that they scored low on word recognition and decoding? They give you an idea of what that means and what the implications are. And there you can see is below the decoding threshold of 235, and therefore unlikely to improve reading comprehension before crossing the threshold. Next. It tells us what skills the learner needs to work on and with what priority, what learning resources could be used, what learning formats might be best for that learner. Next. And also some recommendations. They have really good, helpful recommendations for building the skills. And we won't have to do this, but they give you an examples of what resources you can use, what things you should focus on to build skills in each of the 6 subtest areas. Next. And more. Yeah, we use it to measure progress. They have 3 levels, low, medium, and high. They correspond roughly to 1, 2, and 3 in OELCF, ES. There are 2 tests at each level, so you can give a pre and a post, so to speak. Next. So here's one learner who took a level 1 in June of 2021, took a level 2 or medium in July of 2022. He did pretty well, so we thought, well, we'll give him a level 3 and see how he does, whether he's ready for next steps. And you can see the scores went down, but still he held his own and he got blues in most of the areas. He has a learning disability, so green is probably going to keep showing up in word recognition and decoding. So based on this, we can say, yeah, this person is ready to move on to the next agency because he scored appropriately in the comprehension and reading efficiency, etc. Next. This is just another portrayal of his results. And another one. They put up and down arrows to show you. Then once again they tell you what these all mean, what the scores mean for you. And we use it to confirm that a learner is ready for next steps. And I just explained that. Next. Benefits to the learner, they receive appropriate instruction because we know what they need to work on. they can see their progress in a visual format, which boosts their confidence and motivation. And they can see what skills they have improved, what they need to work on. They can see that their hard work is paying off. The student that didn't improve, at least you can see, well, I got better at my phonics and decoding. I'm making progress. Next. If you're interested in being in this project, here is the contact information. You get the slides. Contact Holly Smith at University of Memphis. They'd be happy to, they give you really good orientation. They give you explanation of how to use the tools. They're very helpful, very responsive. Anytime I ask for next level, they're right on it. Yeah, so if you're interested in using this tool, contact them and you can get started. And that's my presentation. Not quite 7 minutes, but.
Thank you so much, Sue.
Okay.
We will check in with Heather and see if there are some questions. I'm glad that we have this information about Hallie's contact information on the slide deck that will go to everyone, because I'm quite sure people will be getting on their phones and giving her a call or on their email and emailing her. Heather, are there any questions?
Lisa, also from the literacy group, has been answering questions as they come up in the chat. The only one was about whether the levels that people were seeing aligned with IELTS, but you did address the levels at one point, so you might have already answered that question.
Yeah, I would say yeah, mid to high, yeah, mid level 1, high level 1, all the way through level 3 can be assessed with the Sarah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, moving on to a slightly more regional perspective, recognizing that we are still behind or past our end time. I want to thank you, first of all, for staying with us today for a little bit longer than we originally intended. There's just so darn much good information to share. It's hard to wrap it up fast. I do hope you'll welcome Sarah Gill, who's the Executive Director of the Adult Basic Education Association, which is the Adult Learning Network in Hamilton. Throughout her time in adult literacy and workplace essential skills education, she's been an instructor, researcher, developer, assessor, trainer. She was also an online instructor for Ontario Learn, the teacher of adult literacy educator through Sault College. And with her today is Jamie Martinez Sorto, who is an educational pathway planner at ABEA. As a pathway planner, she facilitates ABEA's assessments and referrals, working with clients to identify their education and employment goals, and will make referrals or complete action plans to help them meet those goals. So Sarah's going to be talking about the Education Planning and Assessment Tool, or EPAT, and Jamie will answer questions at the end. Thanks so much for joining us, guys.
Thanks, glad to be here. Always something new to learn when it comes to assessment, even though, you know, ABA has been doing this for about 30 years, and I've been around for 20 of it. That's kind of funny to say. But anyway, if we can move into the couple of slides, and I think Summer, whoever is navigating the slide deck, that would be great. And I think, yep, right there is perfect. So we are an adult learning network where we do not do direct service delivery. And so the idea behind all of our assessment tools and our approaches around assessment is for initial assessment, for referrals, but also that larger educational pathway planning that we know is so important, so that we can capture all of the various steps someone is going to look at from where they are through the assessment process right towards their end goal path. So really the approach around the EPAT, I'll call it that for now, is to be able to have a tool that connects directly to the community partners that we're referring to. And what I mean by that is specifically employment services, Ontario Works, other community partners that are looking at our assessment and also working with those clients to support their goals. And so a lot of what we do in this particular assessment tool does focus on employment through the lens of all of the goal paths that potentially lead them there longer term. And so we're really focused on serving people who are not sure of their skills. They've been out of training or the schooling system for a very long time, maybe need prerequisites, but ultimately are just simply unsure of what their pathway could look like. And here in Hamilton, we have a ton of different services that people could look at attending. So it's very important to help them navigate some of those services. And so really that's what we're using our assessment for, is that navigation piece, initial assessment, and ultimately kind of that educational planning. We do use, I guess we can call it skills for success tasks. We use validated essential skills tasks, which is what it was formerly named, of course, or formerly. And so they're from Skill Plan, the Measure Up website. So I'm happy to put that URL in the chat, and a couple of other different things that I'll be talking about really briefly. But we wanted to make sure that we, again, were communicating in the same language. We're talking about essential skills needed for employment, and having clients do really task-based assessment that were already validated through different projects. So again, that's Measure Up through Skill Plan, and they are validated essential skills tasks. And in the beginning, we were doing them in person pre-COVID, of course, and now we've adapted them virtually so people can use an online tool. We use Socrative. I'm sure there's lots of different ways that folks are doing quizzes and assessments online. That's just the one that we're using. So in terms of the process, we do a very comprehensive background interview. Thanks to Jessica for nuancing that for us earlier. Some of our pre-assessment tools for learning challenges, as well as lots of information around educational history, employment goals, employment history, thank you, Jamie, as well as we do some career quizzes. And again, we're absolutely not an employment service. We don't intend to be, but we really want to make sure that if someone is thinking about moving in an employment direction, that not only are they connected with an employment service or other community partner to support them, but that we're creating some linkage on the learner plan or their plan that connects those results to what they're thinking. And if there's absolutely no connection, that's okay, but at least it's a good conversation starter to say, is this really an appropriate goal path for you based on some of these other conversations that we're going to have? As with any initial assessment, there's always an activity set. And so we're happy to show you a little example of what those Measure Up tools look like. And so what we've done is we really wanted to make sure that the tasks that we were giving folks to do related to their employment goal. And so we took a lot of those tasks that we could get on the Measure Up website, and we packaged them with sets of, I would say, 4 or 5 different tasks, all related to that employment goal path. So for example, if someone wanted to go into healthcare, they would do the healthcare package, and it would assess levels 1, 2, and 3 for reading, document use, and numeracy. And then we would provide them with a writing sample. And we also asked them some questions about their digital literacy skills. So again, as an initial assessment that could potentially go back to an employment counselor or be forwarded to a literacy instructor, they would have all the information that they would need to do that. So once they've completed their activity set, of course, we would do some individual review and follow up to make sure that what we've drafted for them makes sense, that maybe they have some ideas and some input. Of course, we have to co-build this, and then we would share it with the appropriate partners. So I have a couple of images here to show you just in terms of some of the work that we're doing on the assessment. Let's move forward. So this is, again, it's just a nod in the direction of the employment focus of this particular tool. We always include a labor market profile of the employment goal that they're looking at. And you can see some of the information that we would include here. Essentially, the outlook is really important to people, the wage, and some of the, of course, the education requirements that they'll see later on in their action plan. Okay. This is just how we represent what happens in the couple of employment surveys that we asked them to do. You'll notice the links down there. Jamie, if I could ask if you have them handy, if you could also include them in the chat. We use the Ontario Labour Market Career Quiz, as well as the interest inventory coming out of BC. It's called the Work Preference Quiz. And both of these, the clients would go through a series of questions, and it would result in 10 or more actual job titles. And again, we want to look at more job category results to make sure that there's some compatibility with what they're hoping to do in the future. So here's just a couple of screenshots. Thank you so much, Jamie, of the Work Preference Quiz and the Ontario Labour Market Quiz, the results that you would get. And if you go to the links, you could maybe do them yourself and see if that's something that your learners might have an interest in. This is our results page, so it just allows us to capture a couple of different things. So based on the tasks that they would do, we can identify initially, not with a huge data set, approximately what level of skill or what level of task they're comfortable completing and where they might need some upgrading. And so that's what you see on the far right is anything with a dot there suggests that maybe an upgrading program is appropriate to do some of that work. But also, again, that recognition of what essential skills levels they're going to need for employment, that second column there. And then, of course, where they need to be to move on to the next step. We really wanted to put a slide here about the essential skills task because every time we talk to a group of people, we talk about how awesome this is for learner plan development. This is from the Job Bank website under skills. If you were to search out a specific job from the dashboard and click skills, you would essentially get a very comprehensive list of what someone would need to do on the job every day and at what levels those skills are. And so it's incredibly useful when you're trying to embed really authentic types of tasks into the learner plan. Yep, Lisa, the ESA was the first iteration. That's why it looks familiar. I'm just seeing the chat as it goes out. And we just wanted to show you a very quick sample of what the activity set looks like. Again, this is not something that ABEA created for ourselves. These are publicly available tasks. Again, they're in the essential skills list, but you can see how the tasks are identified there, as well as the answer sheet. So predominantly, we're still doing this a bit manually in terms of marking and stuff, and we're really interested in kind of expanding the tools that we're using. So this is just a fun reference to the fact that people are still actually writing things down. So this is some of the analysis that Jamie would do when she was looking at some of the information from someone's assessment. And so we have some tools that are looking at that. And so this is just a really great way because a lot of us at ABEA are pretty techie and we're looking at different, there's always an app for that. So we were like, hey, let's show them that sometimes we still do analysis by making a chart and writing things down. And this is just a sample of an educational pathway plan. You can see that it's comprehensive based on the information that we were looking at. And it takes someone right from, hey, are you connected to employment services, right through to vocational training and that kind of thing. And we put Jamie's contact information here because she's amazing and she will absolutely address any questions you have. I know that we're super short on time, so if you want to jot down her email address, I think that's probably the best way to do it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sarah, for all the information you just shared about EPAT. Heather, just a real quick check. I think there's been, most of the questions have been answered already through the chat, but I want to check in.
Yeah, Sarah's very good at watching the chat and
Yeah.
talking at the same time. So yeah, questions have been answered.
Wonderful. All right, then wrapping up our amazing collection of panelists today is Monica Jankowska-Potzina, an organizational development specialist in education and technology at Alpha Plus. Drawing from many years of experience, Monica supports adult education service providers to identify and implement technology and tools to improve their work in the classroom and reduce administrative burden. Her coaching clients get to take advantage of technical expertise in the uptake and application of Google Apps, Microsoft suite of products, e-learning and LMS systems, social media and event tools, and so on and so forth. Monica, I'm thrilled to welcome you, and I thank you for your patience as we worked our way towards your presentation today. Monica will be talking a bit about the services Alpha Plus offers to frontline programs, and also talking about work they've done creating or modifying assessments using Google Sheets and Google Forms. Monica, I'll pass it over to you.
Wow, thank you so much. And thank you for the nice comments in the chat as well. I appreciate it, especially to the big group of people who stayed behind to the end. So it really, really means a lot for us. I will try to keep it brief. Just quick update about Alpha Plus and what we are doing. If you haven't seen our website, please go check it out. We have newly updated website with our services. And if you have used our services before or planning to use them, you should know that our team is eager to work with all of you, and we can help with any general tech questions you may have. We use technology ourselves, so sometimes we can help or showcase what we have found out about specific tools. We do coaching one-on-one or group settings. We have specific communities of practice and groups that get together to work on specific topics, and a huge resource collection. And with the new website we just did, you will find even more information there as well. But as we work with different organizations, we often are seeing what they're doing and how they're implementing tools and resources. So I have to say, I was expecting to see more Google Forms or Microsoft Forms in this presentation. A lot of amazing tools have been shared today. But through our work that we do, we often really talk about Google Forms or tools that are free to use and easy to adapt. So what I thought I will quickly share today is just two examples. One, to show you how when we started using Google Forms, we actually learned that sometimes they may not be as easy to use as we think. And the example here is actually a program we worked with at Bob Ramble. We started using Google Forms, and they were using those for exit surveys with their learners, but quickly realized that they were getting very negative feedback. Even though the learners were very happy with the program and the services, the feedback itself was really, really bad. So through discussions and conversations, we learned that a lot of the learners, not only in this program, but in many other programs as well, actually do not understand questions sometimes, or even don't know how to use feedback forms or surveys that they are sort of have to do online or on a device. So what we did in this case, we actually looked at customizing it a bit more. And there's a small screen capture on the screen. You will see that you can add pictures to some of the questions you're asking. So we use that feature to add thumbs up and thumbs down to customize the questions and answers to make it easier for the learners to use them as well. Also, it's sometimes worthwhile to include videos in your questions. And specifically when you need to use ASL language or specific way of asking a question, you can add a video in your form to make it a bit easier to use and more accessible for your learners. So that was a bit of an eye opener for us when working with tools many of us talk about and seeing how they could be improved a bit more to make it easier for the learners you're working with. And on the sites, you have examples. You can link to them afterwards. Reach out to me if you have any questions about that. The second example I wanted to mention is to sort of look at tools in many different ways. So we sometimes think outside of the box in situations where something we think should be working for a program is not. So when we were working with a school board a few years ago, this is actually before COVID, they love to have their paper assessments. And when they started to use technology a bit more, it was really hard to adapt. They didn't like Google Forms. They didn't like how the questions were structured. They didn't really read and work well with the feedback they were getting from the learners. They wanted something that would be as close to the paper copy as possible. So we really kind of experimented here, and we started looking at Google Sheets. And in Google Sheets, you can remove the grid and you can set up the questions in such a way where some sections can be blocked off and they cannot be clicked or changed. And some fields can be made fillable. So we kind of sort of the idea of fillable PDF, but with the access through Google Sheets, we recreated the forms, added the pictures, added the questions, and set it up so that instructors can share the link with the learner. The learner would basically answer the fields only where they would see fields in yellow. And the instructor immediately will see the responses because it's a Google Sheet and they're sharing the sheet together. What was nice about that is that the learner could quickly do it without having to use too many digital skills. Because anytime we ask them to do something online, it's very different than on paper. And sometimes we forget about that, you know, they may not be able to answer the question, not because they don't know the answer, but because they don't know how to do it in a digital environment. So we were really trying to accommodate our learners and instructors who love those types of assessments to make sure that they're as close to what they are using as possible. And if you have a question about sharing this type of document, the instructor would actually enable editing on the document when the learner was working on it, and then close that editing after the learner was done. So there will be no more changes to the document, and that could actually be saved in learner file or printed and put in the learner package or the folder that they have for that learner. So it was looking at using the tool in a slightly different way to accommodate and adapt the learners. And we use the same process with learner plans. So many programs have a learner plan that they give to the student to have in a folder or take home. So we use the ability to create a form where somebody can write answers. We used formulas to copy them into a separate sheet that will be nicely laid out, clean, without grids, with some pictures that they can print out and use for their own purposes. And they could go back and adapt and adjust that learner plan if they needed to, with the support of the learner or on their the instructor or on their own. So it was amazing to see how just that kind of shift, visual look of what everybody is used to, but in a bit more online environment, was making a difference for those instructors and learners. So again, you have links to those on our slide. And if you have any questions about those, how to do that, how to use the formulas, don't forget, we can help with that, whether through coaching or tech support that we provide. Reach out and ask us any questions. And just very, very briefly, there's a lot of events coming up from Alpha Plus. Next week, we have Gap Fests. They will be on October 27th, not 24th, a bit of change of date. We will have our ENET or Educational Network starting in next week as well. And a showcase coming back in November when we will be talking about using apps and digital devices. So not only very customized apps, but just overall, how can you introduce your learners to mobile technology and really use it to engage them and to help them get more comfortable with those tools in their life and work or school, if they go back to that as well. We also have Digital Inclusion Playbook that will help you with how you can get internet access for your learners, how you can get devices for your learners. So a lot of research and work done there to help you integrate more technology in the programming and supporting your learners as well. So brief, quick, I hope this was helpful and gave you some ideas as well. Thank you.
Oh, it was incredibly helpful, Monica. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective on how you can use the tools that I know Alpha Plus and you in particular are so strong at promoting and helping people understand to make things easier, both for instructors as well as for the learners that we serve. That was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions in chat for Monica before she signs off?
No questions, but a lot of thank yous and thumbs ups and endorsement of what Alpha Plus does, and Monica, what you do in particular. I know you've helped me out on a number of occasions, and I wouldn't have been able to function without your help. So I can heartily endorse connecting with Alpha Plus and Monica.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, clearly, we talked about a lot today. So many new resources and tools and ideas and practices. I believe some people may want to catch up on what they have missed from today's session if they had to log off early. Perhaps they want to revisit this topic or share session that we recorded today with their coworkers. We invite you to visit either the English or French language channel websites shown on your screen. As soon as we get them posted, you'll be able to download the presentation slides, review the transcript, and even watch a playback of the session. As you will see from the next link on the screen, and I know Stacy has also posted it to chat a few times, and I think Heather has too. We do have an evaluation for today's session, and we'd really appreciate you filling it out. Your feedback is used to make sure these sessions remain relevant and valuable and information packed for all the literacy practitioners that attend both this year and in future years. So please do take the time to fill it out. Finally, I invite you to consider signing up for one or all of the remaining pop-up PD sessions for this year. If you missed the broadcast of the Introducing New Milestones and Culminating Tasks webinar that was earlier this month, that's the next one coming up live again on Thursday, November 17th, 2022. And then we'll take a little break for the holidays and we'll return on Thursday, January 19th, 2023 for a webinar focused on navigating the road to hybrid delivery. We'll wrap up the fiscal year then looking at the new Skills for Success framework on Thursday, February 16th, 2023. So to learn more about and register for these sessions, please do visit the Learning Networks of Ontario website that you can see on your screen. So a big thank you to you for staying, to the members of the Pop-Up PD for Literacy Educators Committee who have put collectively so much time and effort into these sessions each year. We want to acknowledge the invaluable support of Contact North in bringing these webinars to fruition and providing technical support to those who need it, to DLI for arranging our ASL translators today, to COFA for providing French transcripts of these sessions, and mostly to you for attending today. Thank you so much, everyone, and goodbye.